I'm James Shule, Assistant Director, Youth Admin Programs.
I'm Kristen Nolan, the Human Resources Manager for Upstairs Records.
Emily Field, CEO of Reliant Credit Union.
Jonathan Taylor, Mayor in the Village of Newark.
Jessica Wells, owner, 7 Letters Consulting.
Erin Tolfree, president of Baldwin Richardson Foods and rep for the Regional Economic Development Council.
Mike Green, Greenland Surveying, local 58-year-old community member.
Don Lasher, Capstone Real Estate.
Valerie Boss, Office of Children and Family Services, and also a village resident.
Mara Snyder, Vice President of Operations, Newark Plain Community Hospital.
CJ Britt, Senior Lender, Lions National Bank.
Devin Beer, Brownstone Physical Therapy.
George Kevin, Director of Newark Housing Authority.
I'm Ed Flynn from LaBelle Associates.
Derek Kane, in Bell as well.
Mike.
Michael Goldwhite from Bell Associates.
Okay.
And we do not have any LPC members that I can see, just some 5 attendees from the community in the online meeting, and this is being recorded as well for folks afterwards.
Okay. All right. And you did call all these sponsors in advance, right, Mike? And ask them if they were coming. Did any say they were not coming?
Yes, Mr. Alcino, thank you. Most likely will not be joining us this evening. He was not sure yesterday, and detected fact means today, so I believe he will not be attending.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start the sponsor presentations, and it's probably going to take around 2 hours. We sent the questions in advance both to the local planning committee as well as to the sponsors. The sponsors were directed to make sure that they answer the questions as part of their presentation. Of course, if they don't answer those questions, the LPC can ask those if there's time to ask those. And they will be given 10 minutes. I will be the timekeeper. I will be firm. I will tell the sponsors when they have a minute left to make presentations. And we will stop at 10 minutes. And the sponsors were also told they can have a presentation for the computer. We didn't get any of those. If they wanted to have handouts, they could have those. We have some of those. And if they wanted boards, they could have some of those. And I think some of the sponsors have that. So with that, we do have just one audible. We're going to have Mike Green come up first to present on Green Suites. And where are you? One of the LPC members too. And by the way, if you're an LPC member, you can't leave after your presentation. You have to stay and actually listen to everyone else's. So.
I do have a question before you.
Yeah, sure.
They have questions.
That might be stuff
They ask the questions because we have the agreed upon questions.
They are supposed to answer them as
Okay.
part of their presentation.
Okay, but if they leave time for questions.
I think the
then-
chairs should answer the
Okay.
questions if there's any questions that weren't answered. Does
Got
that make sense? Mike and Aaron?
Sorry, I missed the
She
question.
said if they don't answer those 6 questions in their presentation, who will ask the questions that they did not answer? And I said the chairs, makes sense for the chairs to answer those or ask those.
What I was trying to ask was, you said they could do their presentation and leave time for questions. If they leave time for questions, who asks the questions?
Yeah,
We have the agreed upon questions.
I think you just ask the chairs, if you
Yeah,
can ask a question. and then ask a
no,
question.
the LPC members can ask any other questions you want to ask. I think that's where you're going, aren't you?
Well, yeah,
And
I thought that we had agreed to just ask these questions. That was the only reason I was asking.
No, those are the questions we wanted
Answer.
asked of every applicant. And then if you have further questions and there's time allows, ask
Okay.
those questions.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah.
I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mike Green. I've lived in Newark my entire life. I've prefaced this before in saying at the start of this process, I had no idea I would be standing up here trying to present a project. I was just interested in being part of the processes and the approval. But first night at the meeting, I happened to realize that where I live here, there's a vacant parcel out back that is right across from the Park Presbyterian Church. Can everybody hear me okay? And community center and the Central Park. So I'd always been kind of thinking, what can I do with that property? And it just kind of hit me. Well, we've been planning, back up a little bit. I'll cover the part where it asks about your experience. So I have been a land surveyor, I've been involved in land planning, subdividing properties, building single family homes and some commercial things, usually working with other contractors. But whenever I'm doing my own kind of thing, I'm super hands-on. So if this project flies, the hard part for me on this project is going to kind of be staying hands off and let other contractors handle the work while I'm kind of directing. So we're renovating this house into a possible bed and breakfast, and realize that if we did like a little Airbnb out back, it could work well together, and what the heck, let's see what happens. So that covers a little bit of my background, a little bit of why I'm here. I made this print just to kind of show if this is where the Airbnb is built. In yellow are all the different churches that are within a block and a half. If someone's here for a wedding and they want to rent the venue to be there before the weddings. On the darker side, these are the 3 funeral homes in town, and they're all lots. And then, of course, we need to have something to eat. So each one of these is a different restaurant. One of the ones that I've actually, my wife and I and family have gotten kind of keen on is the Erie Shore Landing. And I hope part of this whole process kind of builds that business a little bit, because I think they do a really good job there. So pretty much that's the furthest one to walk to, but here's the Port of New York, or Newark, that's getting revitalized. And once again, I'm 1, 2, 3, 3.5, 4 blocks away. So part of the idea of this location, I think, just plays really well with a lot of the amenities that we have. The only other color I didn't point out was that's the Elks Club, VFW, and American Legion. So if somebody's here for some function of that nature, once again, pretty cool little spot, I think, as far as where it is. So I think I've covered the introduction, who I am and how maybe I could actually pull this off as far as knowledge and skill. Financing, first I provided a letter showing a bank account that would fund my portion of the project, not necessarily the entire portion of the project. And I've reached out to a contact today at a local bank, and I think we may, worst case scenario, we could do a letter of credit or equity loan against the balance of the property, which would put us way over the total build price. So that handles the financing part of it. Let's take a peek at the rest of the questions. So there would be no obstacles as far as starting this project spring of 23. There is one little technical thing that the village is working with us all on. Right now, I do have a zoning of residential, but what we're gonna do is make a separate parcel for where the inn would be, and that'll be on its own tax ID number. And once that is created, it would become automatically put into the business district. So it takes care of any zoning changes or requirements that I have to do. So that clears up that little teeny stumbling block. I kind of went over the benefits and why I think it's a kind of a neat idea. The other question it asks is, let's get to the legal issues. There are no legal issues. There's, I have no, I think everything's good to go. There are no easements I would need to put in place. There's no mortgages or anything we have to release or anything like this. We own it free and clear. We could be shovel ready. The only other question to ask is, would you be comfortable taking less than the asking of for the DRI monies? Now, we did it, originally I put 40%. The consultant said, well, you are trying to incorporate some solar and some car changing, so that kind of gives you that bump to, you could ask for 50%. So I guess the long and the short of it would be, if we got the 50%, we would 100% make sure we include the green infrastructure. If we didn't, we would have to look long and hard at that extra cost. I have reached out to the solar guys, and I got back just today. It's about a $35,000 cost to put about 600 square feet on top of the building. So even the 10% wouldn't quite cover it, but I would still be into it. Of the extra. One other thing I noticed yesterday that I'd like to point out, here's the property. This is where the bus stop comes and parks in front of the church, picks people up. So, I mean, it's just convenient in a lot of ways. So, with that, Ed, how am I doing? What I got
We
left?
got 3.5 minutes left.
Beautiful. What's that, honey? You have an idea?
Okay, so the LPC, yeah, give it the picture up, Mike, that'd be great. So you want the, any, and there you
Put
go.
the picture
Any
up.
more presentation?
Oh, actually, I have a couple little things. Mike C, did that email ever come in?
Right now.
Yeah, great. So my consultants did a rendering. Basically, this is kind of like the start of the site plan part of the program. This just kind of gives you the juxtaposition of once this building was built, the community center buildings here, Presbyterian Church, our residence right there in our carriage house. So would be, once I split it, I still have a nice big acre lot. It's, it's kind of in the works. We haven't done topography or put any contours or site planning to it yet, but that's actually, they told me you can't get reimbursed for that, but I'm gonna turn my guys loose on that anyways, because why not? They did, the house here is a 2 stories Tudor style, and they were kind of trying to pull some cues off of that. But I think we're gonna go to a more modern kind of. Oh, he's got it. Oh, it came in. We're doing that. That's more like it. Except for I told him to make these dormers. Well, we'll see. Yeah, something like that. In the middle unit, so we're thinking, originally I was thinking 5 units, but we're thinking more like 4 units, and then the center would be like a little coin op laundry area for people that are staying there a few days that might want to do a little laundry. So anyway, I want to at least leave 1 minute for, oh, wait a minute. Jim Calcino said I could have 2 of his minutes.
Okay. The questions come from the LPC. You got 1 minute, 9 seconds left.
All right.
So this is a short-term like Airbnb type kind of thing. right?
Exactly. For people, weddings, funerals, reunions,
Graduation.
Yeah, graduation. It's just something that maybe you don't want them in your house. Why don't you go stay with them?
These are street facing.
Yes, street facing. The backyard will look right towards, so this is this end of the street. This will be facing parking in front.
Okay.
And then the big backyard all the way to our house.
Will this have any impact on the community center that's currently there?
I don't know. I don't think so, unless somebody's coming in town, maybe Mike Muscolino wants to put them up. But it really wouldn't, I don't think.
What's wrong with the kids outside playing?
You know what, we've been here a couple of years, and once I took down this fence that was around there and kind of opened it up, we really haven't had any real issues with the kids goofing around out there. So I don't really foresee any issues. We are gonna fence right around here to try to keep any.
I think that's the last answer.
I'm out.
Sorry.
Wait a minute. Do I have Jim's minutes?
They were firm, so. There you go.
All right, so, well, hopefully I
Thanks,
covered
Mike.
everything.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate the time.
All right, so the next applicant is Condensa Corporation.
Ed,
Yeah,
is it, can the public ask questions or not?
we have public comments at the end, and they can have comments at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have enough time for that. Sure.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Chris Iverson from Chrysantha over in Gorham. You don't know me or my company's reputation. We built the Geneva Ramada Inn, Geneva Hampton Inn, and Hampton Inn. And those are projects that we feel are very appropriate. The experience that we had there, similar to what we would be proposing here. Our project, and I do believe the committee has information that I provided, hopefully it answered most all of the questions that were deemed important tonight. I will highlight some of that information. The applications that we've made were two parts, one for the hotel, one for the conference center, but in fact, both projects need to go together. So we have a roughly $18.7 million project. Combining those two, they will be connected buildings, roughly 70,000 square feet of new build, roughly 100 rooms, conference space to accommodate 300 plus or minus people in a not classroom seating, but table reception seating. More seating if it was in classroom seating. I've given you the reasons why we don't think a smaller project would work. We need to attract business conferences of a certain size, and they're looking for rooms that would accommodate that size conference. We can't suggest to have a 200-person conference and then tell half of them they've got to go to Geneva to stay. That just won't work. So we've got to have a certain size. Both the conference space has to be a certain size and the hotel has to be a certain size. I've given you reasons why scaling down the cost doesn't really work for us operationally. Smaller facility is more expensive to operate. And in fact, the franchises, the major franchises have recognized that they are not satisfied with their smaller hotels. For instance, our Hampton Inn in Geneva is only a 55-room hotel. Hampton Inn will not, the Hilton chain will not build as small as that anymore. We have a 72-room hotel in Penn. Again, that was an aberration. They are not doing that anymore. They're saying the economies just don't work. So we're asking for roughly $5.8 million. I'm not expecting DRI can provide all of that to us. Our project needs all of that money to go forward, but it doesn't need it all from DRI. We are applying for funds from the economic development. Later this month, that application will go in. And if the combination of those funds, and there's a couple different grant sources with economic development that we will be applying for, those funds plus the DRI can make that work. We are prepared to go forward. Now, it's not as quick as the project we just heard. Our project would be starting with design development, approvals, and then construction. And in the midst of all that, we need to raise the additional money. It's the financing from lenders, and it's the equity financing that we do with private investors. That's a process that we have done on all three of the projects I just mentioned. In Geneva, we were given an opportunity by the city of Geneva to say, here's this lake frontage. And the city of Geneva had been trying for 20 or 30 years to get a hotel on their lake frontage. And we finally said to them, every time a developer comes to town and responds to your request for development on the lakefront, they come to Iverson Construction and say, what will it cost us to build a hotel? And so we give them the cost, and we said, why don't we build that hotel? A few years later, after successfully garnering the funds for that project, we went back to our investors in that amount and said, there's probably a demand for another hotel here in town. Why don't we do that? And we collaborated with the city of Geneva to develop 3 blocks of Exchange Street, creating that second hotel in downtown Geneva. CJ's Lions Bank took advantage of that redeveloped Exchange Street in downtown Geneva. So we have the experience to collaborate with villages and create what can be a very good project. The hotel is an attractive economic activity. When I say attractive, I don't mean the aesthetics. I mean, it's an attractive development that creates additional activity around it. We saw in both Geneva and in Penn Yan an immediate uptick in restaurant activity. Housing prices went up, which is a good thing when you're thinking about raising rents so that landlords can afford to make improvements to their properties. the Geneva project, well, I'm sorry, this project, and I gave you, committee members, a pro forma. There's a lot of information in that pro forma if you'll study it. We're projecting revenues of between $4 and $5 million. And our investors would expect to exceed those projections. When you think about that revenue, that's sales tax eligible revenue. I don't know how the sales taxes are shared in this community, but certainly the community will benefit from it. There's also a property tax, a pilot through the IDA, but that ramps up from years 1 through 10. And eventually, when you talk about an $18 million real estate project, that's returning huge new dollars into the community through property tax. And where are those revenues coming from? They're not coming from, for the most part, your local community. These are outside dollars. Outside dollars that are being attracted to be spent in your community. That's something for you to think about. Where are these dollars and where is the impact for you? When I first got into the hotel business in Geneva, I was completely naive about the hotel business. I thought, we'll build a nice facility and people will show up on our doorstep. In fact, when you look at a $4 million or a $5 million revenue stream, that's created by roughly 10% of that income is going to spending on marketing. So we're not just building a hotel, we're spending close to $500,000 every year to attract new business into your community. When we think about the economic activity that's this project, and then what else comes in as a result of our activity. Lastly, I think I'd like to make the point that this committee, I believe, is not trying to narrow the focus down to $10 million of grants. I believe your charge is to get $15 million or $16 million and recommend that over. I would hope that you will be generous in looking at our project and say, this is a project that's going to have huge financial impact to the village. And let's try to get that as much as we can between the DRI and the funds that we're going to be applying for from the other sources of the state. And let the state, when they get your recommendations, let them look at the mix of things and let them decide where does that money need to come from. And then if they cut back what we asked for and you are able to be generous in your allotment, perhaps we'll have enough to get the project done. If not, if the combination is not successful, at least you put that number out there, and perhaps if we can't use it, you'll have other projects that can. So I think it's a win-win for you to recommend our project for as much money as you can see to make it worthwhile for us, because I think it has huge impact for the village. I believe I touched on the items that I was going to try and highlight.
We got about a minute left.
Questions or questions that I didn't answer? I didn't share any illustrations tonight because I believe I provided those to you. The prototype plan from the Women Garden Inn is something we will be trying to accommodate in our designs. We, as Ed asked earlier tonight, we will be trying to highlight the Erie Canal focus to make that part of what we're marketing here for the community more.
I do have two questions. One, you talked about the design and development starting first and the project not being ready for spring, excuse me, of 2023. When would you?
We would anticipate the design and financing would take the better part of 6 or 8 months. Start construction in 2023 and be ready for occupancy in the spring of 25.
And then the final question on any legal or other issues that would hinder the ability.
And I can't imagine what any legal issues would be. I know the village is going to be operating to rezone and specifically looking forward to rezone for this project.
Okay, time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Did you want to go now?
No, well, I'm with him, so either
Oh, you're gonna do it with the Wellness Center, okay. Okay, so next is Capstone Real Estate for the Newark Health and Wellness
that's
Center.
not what's on the agenda. It'll work.
I'm gonna start it now.
Evening, Don Lasher, Capstone Real Estate Development.
Jonathan Taylor with the Village.
I'd like to start just by introducing the project and the site, and I'll let Jonathan take it from there on the needs and the vision for the community. Our proposal is an approximately 72,000 square foot facility located on the site of the former IEC Electronics Corp. Home at 105 Norton Street. Currently, our proposal is to demolish the existing building and rebuild on top of it, although that could change slightly depending on the size and configuration of the building. We proposed a true mixed-use facility. Not only will it have components of the community center located inside of it, it will also, we're also in discussions with Rochester Regional Health to co-locate within the building primary and family medicine, orthopedics, endocrinology, and an urgent care center. We're also working with Brownstone Physical Therapy for approximately 4,000 to 5,000 square feet within the center. So they will all feed off of each other. The building itself, in addition to the track and turf field, will have potentially basketball courts, pickleball courts, flex space for community presentations and uses, community rooms, locker rooms, potentially long jump, high jump, pole vault, concession area. The front of the building will actually face the canal as well. Today's plan, which could change again in the next couple of weeks, but would have a drop off of Norton and Seagrass Street. We could have parking on the rear end of the building. We are looking at potentially relocating that to the south side of Norton Street so that we could open up that space for additional parking if needed. But to steal a couple of term from Chris's earlier presentation, we think this is also an attractive economic activity. And I think that the two projects, the Health and Wellness Center along with the Conference Center and Hotel, will feed off each other. In addition to business conferences, we also envision sporting events, whether it's track and field, pickleball tournaments, basketball tournaments, indoor soccer. A lot of those folks are coming in from out of town. The county today has one facility in Walworth that's sized to handle, I think there's indoor basketball turf fields there as well. But there's nowhere adjacent to it to stay. This facility combined with the hotel and conference center would do that. It's kind of like critical mass on that site, and it takes advantage of the canal. Before I turn it over, our project is probably very similar. We will need roughly 6 to 8 months for design and financing. Construction likely, if that all goes well, would start the end of 23, open in early 2025, but nothing for 24. Nothing starts on time, nothing stays on schedule, so that's it for me.
So the idea of a health and wellness center is something that's been talked about for several years. In fact, of all the surveys and focus groups that we've done over the last 5 years in the DRI, one of the common themes, and you can see that in the survey results from this latest survey, is a need for a new recreation center or a community center or space for our kids. So 6 years ago, I started a conversation with another trustee and a member of the community. We started meeting with school district ADs. We met with the hospital. We started this discussion of what a health and wellness center could look like in the village of Newark. Quickly, we realized that track is of a need. Wayne Finger Lakes track is its own league. They need a home. Training alone for student athletes from the whole region. Part of the thought is that the schools and the county and the region could come to this facility. They could train. They could give, if they need sports medicine, the hospital will be there. Brownstone Physical Therapy are there. Kind of a one-stop shop for student athletes in the area. Also, the discussion about before and after school programs. Pinnacle does this already in Victor. Mom and dad need to go to work at 6 a.m. They can drop their kids off at the facility. Bus comes and picks them up, takes them to school, after school, brings them back, and mom and dad pick them up when they come home from work. Kind of some of these amenities, quality of life things that we don't have right now in Newark available to us. A lot of time we hear about daycare issues, childcare, what are our kids going to do before and after school, and mom and dad are still working, those kind of things. In addition to that, the chamber last year started up a pilot program for a summer camp for kids. The pilot program had 45 kids, and they actually struggled to get that 45 kids for the pilot. They don't really have indoor space. It's outside right now. They squeeze into the school if they have to, but that's not really a viable option. This would provide them an option, and this year they already, a month ago, they were full at 60 kids, and they would like to expand that programming. So space for them is important. As Don mentioned, we just recently watched, just down the road, there was an AAU basketball tournament where 1,000 people were in attendance for that, and there are 2 restaurants in that community. Newark, we already have that infrastructure, some of that infrastructure here. We should be hosting those events and those kind of things. Again, Don had mentioned pickleball. There's a lady who's interested in having space for pickleball. We'd also like to have outdoor courts along with this facility. And as Don mentioned, there's a lot of great synergies potentially with the hotel and conference center, the health and wellness center here in Newark, along the canal, the schools, and the like. So this is a project that people are really seem to be excited about. We're excited to present to the community. The idea would be for the village to rent to own this facility, and our community center would operate out of that facility. It would now give us a place where we could really expand our programming. It's another thing that comes up quite often is that we'd like to see more programming from our community center. So this will give them a space and the opportunity to do that. The village would be responsible for staffing with that, and I would anticipate a facilities manager along with a community center director. So I guess I want to save time for questions because I'm sure there may be some questions.
Only one that pops in my head, sorry to jump in, would be, is there any plans for the old community center?
So the old community center is a very interesting issue. I did not realize this quite honestly until 2 years ago, but Park Presbyterian Church donated the community center to the village on condition that it always be used for municipal purposes. So there would have to be a conversation with Park Presbyterian Church about what municipal uses is and what is acceptable to them. I highly doubt Park Presbyterian Church wants the building back, but I've also had a couple other entities reach out to me that are looking for space that would fit nicely into the community center. And I think in an ideal world, maybe that facility would be taken over by somebody else and owned by somebody else and operated. So we're certainly cognizant of the historical value of the building and the desire to not see that sit and rot. So that's definitely an important consideration that we've had, but there's a dynamic there that not most of us weren't aware of, I think.
We answer all the questions here, so I know you got 3 and 4 answered, but the financing, the experience, if there's less money, and then legal issues.
Yeah.
I'll start with the easy ones. There are no legal issues.
Okay.
Financing, we have a commitment letter from our lender, which obviously would have to be tightened up as we revise the budget and execute leases.
Similar projects?
Similar projects, we have built a lot of medical space over the last few years for other clients. And a very similar building to this, I guess our vision is somewhat similar to the IEC headquarters on Silver Hill, which we completed 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. But it would be a pre-engineered metal building, and the main structure in the back would house the track. The front would be more, I guess, architecturally attractive with some glass and potentially a 2-story entrance and a drop off. So we're not thinking Pittsburgh YMCA here. This isn't a 200,000 square feet monument, but it'll be a well-built facility that will last.
Okay. And then if you get less than your request.
So we have received less than a request. We will need to structure that into our leases or look at alternative funding sources. So we're still struggling with revising our cost estimates now, but hopefully before our next meeting, if not the following, we'll have those right.
I get a minute left, or 50 minutes, 50 seconds.
Jonathan, roughly what percentage of the facility would the village be leasing?
So the
16,000, or excuse me, 56,000 square feet out of 72,
56 out of 7.
roughly.
Any other questions?
You're saying not just a regional healthcare partner with?
we are, yes, more.
Are they hopefully going to chip in your part of your finance?
So. Mary,
Well,
you wanna-
not on the financing plan, but our current conversations involve either a base rent and then amortizing the improvements over the term, or perhaps Rochester Regional performs their own construction separately on top of that. We are not that far along in lease negotiations.
So Capstone is up again, the next one too, to talk about the startup microbrewery, and Mike and Derek will hand out the handouts. So let's talk. I'm going to start it right now.
So this is an existing building located at 100 South Main Street. Everybody probably knows 8831. It's the second building where the former Kelly services space was. Microbrewery is literally a microbrewery. It's just about 1,400 square foot space, half of which is brewing, half of which is proposed for the bar and indoor seating. There are technically two buildings there. There's a courtyard between them today, or an areaway between them today. Our proposal is to combine the two buildings with a pergola or a roof system over it, gated on either end, and secure it as a courtyard space for the microbrewery. Today, I believe by code, the space at 700 square feet with the bar and restrooms allows 29 patients. That was my last one. Well, depends on how they leave. This would provide them space to grow into. So they are a startup, two local residents in the village that we're really excited to work with. We've already started construction, received our permit 2 weeks ago. Hope to have the brewery itself up and running, or this construction and the equipment installed within the next 75 to 90 days, assuming everything arrives on time. The operator, which is Runaway Blue Brewing, and I love their logo, I just saw it today for the first time, is hoping to be up and running the early part of September. So timing wise, to answer one of the questions, the first quarter of 23 would be perfect for this project. Our intent is to have their doors open in September, work out any kinks that always happen with a new business, build that brand recognition through the winter months, and then as soon as the weather breaks, we start courtyard improvements. Hopefully they grow into that space. There are some synergies there as well. We have a small restaurant next door to it that they will hopefully feed off of and use the courtyard. It's right in the center of the village or the main intersection, so it's a great location. There are no legal issues. Financing, it's a small enough project. We would either finance it or work with our existing lender to just increase the amount of our existing mortgage. This is a pretty simple project. It's just involves a lot of demolition, construction between the two buildings, and some utility relocation. Over 10 minutes, so.
No, but if you got less than
That was the,
requested, if you got less than requested.
If we got less than requested, we would scale back the scope of the project. So maybe not, we'd like to do a lot of lighting and built-ins in the courtyard area. If we didn't receive the funding for that, then we have to sit.
You have 7 minutes left. Any questions? LPC.
How late into the season would they be able to operate outside?
So, you know, everybody tries to extend their patio season here in upstate New York with the heaters and the little built-in fire pits. We're after that, kind of on your own. If you stay too long.
Can you blast it all off?
And so the operating company, Runaway Blue, is committed and good to go, right?
They've signed a lease. They actually are closing tomorrow on their financing package for the county economic development. I believe they have their license. We've started construction. We should be done with our work within 30 to 45 days, but we have to tie in their equipment, the brewing system, taps, and all that stuff.
So just understanding from the floor plan, this is one of the storefronts and the courtyard? Is that-
So the plan, actually, courtyard covers two existing buildings. They are on the south side of the courtyard, and they took 2 spaces, so the old Kelly Services and the Cornerstone Realty space.
Okay.
So they have access to the municipal parking lot and South.
Okay, I'm just not that familiar.
5 minutes left.
Primary parking is, would be where in front of like Marshall.
That's actually a village lot.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes.
Okay.
Hopefully walking.
Will the LPC be involved in the tasting to make sure it's? Is
We'll
that
bring
meeting
those,
number
we'll bring it
7?
Tuesday. Okay. If you can either keep asking questions or go to the next one. If it- up to the LPC. All set, I think? All right. So. You clapped twice, now you're gonna get the third one probably. So the next one is the Newark Hospital conversion. And 10 minutes to start now.
So this is the former Newark Hospital, 112 West Miller Street. It is kind of behind Salvatore's and southwest of the brewery, which is ironically very convenient as the focus of the DRI and the governor has been on microbreweries and walkable communities. So our intent on this project, it's about a 9,000 square foot usable, 9,000 square foot, 3-story facility that we would historically renovate. So part of our process, this process will take a lot longer, but we would request to have the project registered with the Park Service, put placed onto the National Register. We would also apply for historic tax credits as part of our financing package. And we would then historically rehabilitate the building. So windows would be replaced to look like they did when the building was built. The brick would be repaired with grout to match the existing or maybe what was originally used. Some of the additions on the back of the building are, one, hideous and falling off, but 2 are not historically appropriate. We would remove those. We create between 8 and 9 apartments inside. Right now, I think it's 8, but they would be roughly between 850 and 1,050 square feet. 2-bedroom, very, I guess, high-end units. Our intent on this is to finish them off to make them market rate and attract users from, again, young professionals or retirees that are in town that don't want to take care of the lawn anymore, can't find new housing stock, or perhaps are here for a year while they're working in a residency at the hospital. Again, it's centrally located, restaurant, shopping, it's right on the 4 corners of the village. The process itself will take a lot longer. We would first apply to have it placed on the National Register, then we would have to send our drawings and renderings to State Historic Preservation Office for their approval. Then we could start construction. That process in and of itself would probably take anywhere between 12 and 15 months. We have a commitment letter from our lender for that project, which will be in our application next week. We have, I think I've done 4 of these before that are, this will be the smallest, but very similar to this, that we have converted an older building into residential. It's a beautiful building. It's just been empty for 20 years. The roof is leaked. I think there's a picture in your application. It's not exactly flattering, but it is what it is. There is a lot of abatement and demolition in this project, which is driving the cost. Unfortunately, without the assistance, a project like this just doesn't work. It's sick. Probably another 20 years. Almost every inch of the floors and walls and ceiling in this building are asbestos-containing materials that have to be abated, demolished. Demolishing the structures on the back and then reinforcing the roof and a lot of the floors because it's just been, it's rained within the building for the last 10. Parking would be provided behind the building, so it would be screened in by the adjacent buildings. And I believe there's a phone company mark next door. Is that their building next door? But our plan is when we tear some of the additions off the back is to create a small courtyard. Again, potentially it's just landscaping or seating areas, maybe it's a fire pit for residents to come down and use, but. No legal issues.
If you receive less than requested.
If we receive less, I would have to we don't know yet the extent of our remediation costs. We're still not there. We're very close. The project will likely still proceed because we could hopefully offset that with our tax credits and some of the deferral from that. The project's not large enough to sell those tax credits or participate to a lender or life insurance company. It's too small by the time we syndicate them. But I think it could work somewhere near that number, but I don't have an exact number yet.
We have 5.5 minutes left. Questions? From the LPC.
There used to be funds available for businesses or houses that were considered blight. Is that something that can be tapped in? I don't know if those are still available.
So like a brownfield credit?
More of houses that are crumbling. It was something through the economic.
I know the county has a program for homes. Well, if this qualifies as a commercial structure. I can certainly check. Thank you.
You can partly answer that. The Restore New York program is coming out from the Empire State Development Corporation, 90% funding. This is kind of a poster child type project for that.
Okay.
So. Any more questions for that?
Can you speak a little bit about the market study and the, the economics of full market rents as you talked about and how that kind of looks?
So it's a small enough project, we wouldn't really perform a market study. We've seen a lot of data from the village on our housing stock here and what exists. Market rents work would be lower than market rents in downtown Rochester, but I think they're probably still right around the $1,200 to $1,400 a month for these units, depending on size. So it puts it right around $1.30, which is on the low end when you compare it to something in the city or Pittsburgh Brighton area. But we just finished up a project where we converted 100,000 feet in Canandaigua to 83 apartments. Our rents there are probably right around $1.20 to $1.25, depending on the unit and which building it's in. These would be a little higher end than those, but I think it's still supportable in the village. It's only 9 units of absorptions. We'll have to lease before the build. Reality.
Any other questions? We got about 3 minutes left. You guys are doing a great job, Don. All right, so we're all set. All right, so the next.
We have one more question.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Stop the
We are
timer.
removing the elevator. There's walk-up units on the first floor, 3 units, so that which would meet our ADA compliance. So we don't need the elevator for the first time.
Next applicant is Coventry Commons. Construction design. Housing vision. Introduce yourself. We'll put those up. Okay, perfect. All right, we're gonna start the timer now.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Corey Vendakovic. I'm here on behalf of Construction Design and Management. And I'm joined by Chris Trevisani from Housing Visions. We're here to represent our proposed project, Coventry Commons, located at 130 Harrison Street. Just to give you a little background on my company, we are a commercial construction firm known amongst our colleagues and clients for our ability to problem solve, providing creative solutions for unique problems. Through this unique problem solving, that we organically evolved from construction into development to accommodate client needs. In 2020, after a successful development project, we were tapped by the city of Fulton to acquire a 130,000 square foot blighted property. It sat right at the gateway to their community's downtown district. It's been neglected for some time, and they just wanted it had become a eyesore to the community. They wanted to see something done to restore the beauty to it. After acquiring the property, we submitted a successful DRI application in round 4 and were awarded DRI funding. After that, through conversations with the city and through our own market research, we learned that there was a critical need for housing in the community. And after learning that, we of course reached out to Chris over here and his team at Housing Visions, as they have proved time and time again that they are the experts in that field. And with that, I'll take over to Chris and let him tell you about his company.
Thanks, Bart. So I'm with a company called Housing Vision. We're a not-for-profit housing development company. We just held our 30th anniversary party, but it was 32 years because our 30th anniversary happened in 2020. So it took us a couple of years to hold our event. And I'm sorry, I have 10 handouts, so I can pass them off.
Give me those, we'll pass them on.
Okay, great. So we're headquartered in Syracuse. We started as a small neighborhood revitalization group, and over time now, we've grown outside of Syracuse, and we've done approximately 1,600 units now across the state. So we own and manage properties from Albany, New York, all the way to Niagara Falls. We just completed a project down in Endicott, Binghamton area, and we are finishing up an 80-unit project up in Plattsburgh. So we kind of follow I-90 and 81 all the way across. So we do a mix of scattered site, neighborhood rehabs, like some of the houses you were mentioning earlier, the blighted ones. We'll try to buy about 10, 12, 20 of those, lump them together as one project, and we have those, with our funding sources. And, really diversify and distribute the investment in an entire community to help revitalize that. In terms of similar projects like this one, similar to Corey, here's another handout. We were selected by the city of Oswego to redevelop a former Flexo wire site, which is right on Lake Ontario on West 2nd Street. It was city-owned property. It was contaminated. It was brownfield. So we acquired that property. We redeveloped it into a mixed-use, mixed-income property. So the picture you see here, there's 75 units in that building and 15,000 square feet of commercial space. And what we try to do with our developments of this size is we try to maximize the rental range of apartments. So, so we have some rents at the lower end and then some at the higher end market rate rent, but all of the apartments are finished the same way. So there could be one apartment that rents for $650, has hardwood floors, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. The next door could be renting for $1,200 a month and it's excellent finish. So we feel like it's an equal opportunity for everyone. And that's kind of the mindset that we take on our developments. Another one that we did in the city of Portland, similar to the building that we're going to discuss shortly, was a former corset factory in the city of Portland. It's 140,000 square feet. Similar to the gentleman from Capstone, roofs were leaking, floors were falling apart, windows were deteriorated. We worked with State Historic Preservation Office and National Park Service to get the building listed on the registry. That one, I want to say, was about a $16 million project, so we were able to syndicate and sell those credits off to an investor. And we did a 43-unit market rate development there. You can see kind of the level of finish on the interior. So they were a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. Going to the building, you're going to see we try to keep some of the historic features. some of the older trusses. Again, this was just, of course, a factory, so just wide open floor plates. Interestingly enough, we preserved the hardwood floors and we were sanding them down. The guy who was doing the sanding kept getting his thing stuck on all the little needles when they were doing it. Of course, it's all got stuck in the floor. So it was a huge change order right there. Again, we try to highlight the historic features there. And then, again, making them accessible. So the building was designed as a factory. So we created an ADA accessible corridor, for our tenants and created an outdoor patio kind of to match the grade there, and just really converting these things into residential. It's kind of an art form. So what we're here to talk to you today about is Coventry Commons, and we came up with that name because this was, as you know, part of the former Sarah Coventry jewelry facility. Right now, it's owned by Greenville Real Estate. He's had a number of commercial tenants kind of in and out of the building. It's going to have a little bit of floor plate for storage and other businesses. So this is kind of a typical floor plate you see there, kind of the older post-beam construction. Windows along there, so similar to our Portland building. So here's East Ave and here's Harrison Street. So the building consists of two separate structures. This is 130 and 132. This looks different because what exists there now is that large one-story cinder block warehouse area. What we thought would fit in best with the neighborhood and a way to bring life back to the building is to demolish that entire one-story fixture, put in nice landscape parking area, one to provide enough parking for 110 residential units, is what we're proposing. And also, increase the street presence here because there's some properties here that might need some attention. And I think with redeveloping this part of the parcel, providing life to it, providing green space, providing activities there, we think will help the neighborhood overall. So that covers mostly our experience.
We have about a minute 20 left, and yet I don't know if you answered all the questions. So.
So what we need to do in terms of process, if we're looking to finance this, we originally were thinking it's around 30 million. I think it's now closer to about 40, based on some of the environmental reviews and structural components. So we're looking to finance it through tax-exempt bonds through the New York State Housing Finance Agency. We're looking to syndicate historic tax credits. The timing may fit. We already talked to HFA. They're excited about this. They want to see our application. So we kind of got the green light there. So the commitments for DRI and HFA will probably follow in line. SHPO and MPS might take the longest, but I think, probably a 2023 fall start is feasible. And we think providing housing opportunities, revitalizing an old abandoned building in the heart of your downtown makes the most sense for your residents. And again, 110 units. And we're looking to provide housing not only for young professionals looking to live downtown, to provide nightlife. They're there every night in your restaurants, walking to work, biking to work. We'll have electric charging stations here as well. It's be 100% electric building. And then housing for seniors as well. Over. Sorry.
If the chairs want me after everyone's done, we have 10 minutes just to ask questions for something. That makes sense.
And no legal.
And you answered about their experience. Okay. Thank you. So the next project is the mayor. You're back.
So you give me for the next three projects and try to end the meeting, but so a lot of the DRI projects, again, they've been projects that the village has been talking about for a number of years now. a new municipal facility really started, the thought and talks with the village board started in 2017, 2018. When we started to consider selling our current municipal facility. Wait a minute, did we skip one?
What?
Yeah.
Did you skip one? We skipped one.
Yeah.
Four Seasons.
Oh, did we? Okay, yes, I guess we did.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, we'll listen to you again. So, Four Seasons, you are up. I'm sorry. You gotta get practice running there, Mayor.
have presentations, I don't have papers, I don't have the nice boards or anything like that, I just have information.
Your time has started.
My name is Caroline Simpson, I am one of the 6 people that will partake into this project. I'll tell you how the project started. We wanted to come back to my hometown, which I'm from here. In the midst of finding out about the BRI, my mom at the same time simultaneously, very oddly, said that I feel that that building should be used for reason. The building I'm referring to is 112 West Smith Street. She said that she felt like this building should be for senior citizens. So we continue with that. She gave the vision to the rest of the team. So the building that we're looking at, we're intending to purchase it, the historical building, which used to be the main hospital, as a senior facility or senior living apartment complex. So the way that I filled out my paperwork is I will answer all your questions that's already on paper. So number 1, do you have enough finances in place for the event if you don't receive the amount for your application? We've been working closely with our consultant team and a few banks in regards to the finance. We're still in progress with it, and we plan to have an update soon. We do have a bank that we spoke to this week that has a letter of interest, but we have not actually got the letter of interest in our hands. The second one you asked was, tell us about your experience with other projects, including those related to the DRI project. Well, as I stated, we have 3 partners that will be part of this project. The main one will be Flower City Monitoring Services Ltd. They've been in business for 19 years. We have Logos Enterprise LLC, which has been in business for over a couple of years. And also my personal nonprofit, which is CL Ministries, Inc. Flower City Monitor Services and a few members from Logos Enterprise LLC have worked on several projects together. 2017, they worked on the building in downtown Rochester, the NICEC building, the asbestos removal and demolition. 2018, they did the school district in Syracuse and Binghamton with demolition and asbestos removal as well. 2020, I'm sorry, in the building that we know here formerly called the NBC, they worked on that and still in the process of completing. And our largest project that we work together as partnerships is the Rochester International Airport with the demolition, constructions, and asbestos removal. So we have about 5 years of experience with demolition, asbestos, and construction. The other question was asked if Newark announces the DRI project award that makes your project feasible in the late fall. Is there any obstacles? As of right now, we don't see any obstacles, but as everyone has said, who can foretell the future? So right now, as we stand, we do not see any issues, any illegal. We know that they're redoing the zoning downtown, so we're just looking forward to moving forward, excited with great anticipation of completing the project. Number 4 was, what's the benefit of the community? Does your proposal project begins and describe how the project is transformation? Well, I took the time to do the survey. Well, look at the numbers. Newark has right about now around 9,017 people. 17.1% is over the age of 65. 14.5 are between the age of 55 and 64. 22.5 are between the age of 35 and 54. According to AARP, they're right on the cusp of being a senior citizen. So with that, at least a total of 44% of the population is considered to be senior citizens. Well, that's what we're here for. The Four Seasons Palace primary focus is to be the option for the senior citizens for a secure place to live without taking away their independence and feeling secure. Many times our seniors feel that they only have two options for living quarters. As we begin to age, we tend to not want to burden our family, and we don't want to have to be put into a facility. First season's benefit to the community will be safety, security, and a beautiful living space for our seniors that can enjoy and still have their independence and feel proud of their living space. We also plan to retain the majority of the building. Of course, if it's tore down, or as he spoke about the floors, of course, we would have to reconstruct that. But we want the majority of the building, and our plan is to design at least 13 units for living space, 2 offices for our staff, which will open up employment opportunities for Newark, as well as security guard on site 24/7. And your last question was, if you are awarded 60% of the DRI funding request, would you move forward with the project? My family has been here in Newark for over 50+ years. Me and my siblings went to school here, as well as my children, nieces, nephews, and grandchildren. We have family church here on East Avenue, and our family has been involved in the community as foster parents, home care providers, state workers, coaches, and so much more. We decided to partake in this opportunity for downtown renovation from the New York State DRI because of the benefit of the program and because of our roots that's in Newark. One of the purposes of the program is to assist the public project that will help build Newark to be more attractive to outsiders as well as visitors, but more importantly, to make it feasible for our elders to stay here instead of traveling to Florida. For this historic building, we will need as much funding as possible. 60% may be feasible, but realistically, 100% of the award will be our target to participate in this project, which is 1.5 million. Excuse me. So those are my answers.
And how about the legal issues?
There is no legal issues. We have none.
We have 3 minutes left. Any questions from the local planning board?
Are you looking to make these market rate,
I'm sorry.
market rate rents or?
Yeah.
Would you be using an elevator in the building?
We plan on using that, especially for senior citizens.
How many square feet would the apartments be?
It'll vary. We do have I didn't bring it. I do apologize. We do have, I think it's anywhere from 800 to 1,000. I'm not sure exactly. I do the other half of it. My fifth partner should have been here, but she's not here. She does the construction part, so I do apologize.
All right. Mayor is back up for the medical center.
So as I started saying, all the village projects have really been part of our DRI discussion since at least 2017, and the municipal building is one of those. Currently, the municipal facility is, as you're aware, at one time was adjoined, well, it's still adjoined, but was one building with the commercial building in front of it on Union Street. We had in 2019, we had MRB do an analysis of the building and an assessment on a number of aspects of the facility and what we would need to do to upgrade that building to continue to stay in the building. From that, we realized there's some needs that we saw quite readily. The need for a new elevator. In fact, our elevator was down yesterday. I was in there for meetings and had people that had to run up the stairs to get there. But at any rate, there's been times where that's been down for long periods of time, which we kind of realized that that's not the best option, or not great for us in that facility. There are other things like walls, windows, energy efficiency, and other things. So kind of the discussion went along the lines of a new facility, certainly be more energy efficient. It would be a better option for the village to have it closer to the canal as part of the central part of our village. And with that would be a new facility with the town, or excuse me, with the village and the school district is actually growing with space needs. Right now, the school is looking at going into the first floor of the existing municipal facility. Additional to the old facility, for those you don't know, there's one basement under our part of the building where both boilers for the commercial building on Union and our building are in the same space. When it was made into two buildings, it kind of did a lot of things that were not efficient and not ideal for the situation that it's in. In some respects, I kind of want to be careful about talking about the needs for that facility, because obviously it's like if you're selling your home, you don't want to tell the people you're trying to sell it to everything that's wrong with it. And then they say, why would I want to buy this? But at any rate, a new facility would be more energy efficient, more space efficient. If you've been in our village's offices in that building, in any of the building, it's not really an efficient use of space at any level of that building. A new facility would be much better. And with the school expanding and having larger space needs, we would still have the courts in that building for both the village and the town, and a new police department. So there still will be the consolidation of services close to the canal, and potentially to provide additional amenities like restrooms and other things to the canal and those who are traveling the canal, either hiking, biking, boating, you name it, in addition to that. And then the old facility could be revitalized at a lower cost if someone were to do that privately rather than the municipality. When we looked at those numbers back in 2019 with MRB, we were getting near costs where it would be better for us to build a new facility rather than rehab the old facility. There's infrastructure concerns that need to be taken care of as well. So that was the kind of the premise of the village's thoughts for a new municipal facility. And as far as the questions, and as much as they apply to the village of Newark, as far as our experience, obviously as a municipality, all of our projects would be bid out. We would obviously have design done by engineering firms and bid out the projects. Tell us how why this is important to the village of Newark is, as I mentioned, the energy savings, the consolidation of services, being centrally located on the canal with all the other improvements that are happening there is really a part of the bigger picture of the transformation of our community through the DRI. There are no other legal issues. The village has discussed there would need to bond money for the facility, and we expected that in any event, whether there was a DRI or not. The DRI certainly makes it easier for us to finance that. In addition to that, we're going to continue to look for other sources of funding. The local waterfront revitalization plan, that grant, we are actually applying for the planning grant again. If we're successful in that planning grant, then we can move on to writing the plan, and then projects along the canal could get up to $2 million per project. And that would be another source of funding that all the projects that are in the DRI could potentially go after. We're trying to get that through. Last year we did that as well. So there are a lot of other opportunities that we have been as a village pretty aggressive in looking for grant funding, and we would add that to anything we could get from the DRI as well to make this happen for the village of Newark. The village of Newark has a very good credit rating, so we don't foresee any issues with bonding as far as the project. So I don't know if there's take any questions on a municipal facility. I yield the rest of my time to the village of Newark.
Yeah. If you receive less, obviously you just have a bigger body, right?
Right.
Okay. No questions? You covered it all. All right. The next project is Canal Port, and I think James is going to help them up with this a little bit too. So. Start. Ready to go?
Yep. So the canal port again, this started out mainly talking about the request from boaters for more amenities along the south bank. We don't have the electric and water hookups on the south side. Currently, the Port of Newark is a very popular destination amongst boaters and hikers, as we have free laundry, shower use, those kind of amenities a lot of places don't offer. So we're a very popular spot. As you can see, last summer, the port was full nearly every day, all summer long. So we would like to, and one of the issues we'd like to address is the south side with those things. But that kind of over the discussions of the DRI, again, over the public meetings that we held over the last 5 years, brought out a lot of other ideas that were generally came from the community in discussions about what they would like to see. One of the options, and I think James is gonna kind of take over in some of this, but one thought is an amphitheater. If anyone's ever been to the Riverwalk in San Antonio, has anyone been there? So they have, on one side of the Riverwalk, they have a stage, on the other side, they have terrace seating. You sit on concrete blocks, your feet are on grass below you, and it's kind of terraced up an embankment. That was something that came from the community. You could see a stage on one side of the canal with seating on the south bank. In addition to that, we've talked about a longer season place for farmers markets or places to house our Wine and Artisan Festival, our Taste of Wayne County, and other festivals along Van Buren Street, where we have some type of cover, and to have a longer farmers market. So that's going to be the promenade that James is going to talk about as well. So I guess I'll let James, let you take over and kind of talk about the things that we've added to this and where we're at.
Okay, yeah, so one thing we want to kind of think about is that this is a vision plan for the whole area too, and we're thinking kind of, bigger scheme for this whole area. But one thing that we really want to focus on is this kind of amphitheater central portion in here, really creating a connection between the streetscape on Van Buren to the port docks themselves. Currently, you have two walls that kind of separate these areas and parking in here. It's not really invited and doesn't really bring you to the waterfront area. So that connection between streetscape and the waterfront is really important. And then also the opportunity to create a promenade along both of these sides of Van Buren Street on the Port Plaza area, and really create that central amphitheater space right in the center here. As far as another thing we talked about also was a kayak launching area that would kind of draw you down to the waterfront and essentially create an accessible kayak ramp in this location here. These are some of the images that show some precedents of the area, or of different examples. One being the amphitheater area, something that's a little bit more industrial, that would then tie with a promenade space for farmers markets, the wine festival, and everything down Van Buren Street in there. This is an image of Tonawanda. They've kind of done a similar thing along their canal front area, but this shows that connection between your streetscape and the canal front. So how easily you could flow between those two areas. Additional images are showing the tiered seating that you potentially have in the future, looking out over the canal itself. So you could have tiered seating on one side, on the south side, and then have the amphitheater area on the north side. So an experience that's nowhere else along the canal, where you could have music events on the north side of the canal. Additional things we're looking at also are additional boat hookups on the south side of the canal. So providing more electrical and water hookups for the boats. And then here's just the rendering that we have. It kind of shows a little bit more definition to which areas would be like market areas that would be covered, and the amphitheater stage area, covered stage area there.
So one of the exciting pieces to this project is not everything has to happen today or happen during the DRI. We've talked long-term vision for what this could look like, and some of this could come later. One of the things we talked about is varying power lines, which could be expensive, but parallel parking on Van Buren Street. Mark Peak and I just yesterday met with ARC to discuss the potential for maybe even having at this end of Van Buren Street, the east end blocked off, and have that kind of outdoor living space, essentially with tables and other things. This certainly would benefit the ice cream shop, the bakery, and any other potential vendors that could be there. Envision, if any of you have been to Geneva, they do this, they block off the streets. There's even, we even talk about the possibility of temporarily blocking off that street for those types of Friday night, it's a nice night, everybody's gonna open up and serve outside. Or just people visiting want a place to relax they're staying in their boats. Really trying to enhance our port. On the other side, there were some other changes that could be made in time with pedestrian access from the street and also improving that parking lot. Certainly someday we hope that there's an opportunity for infill projects here. We want more rear facing businesses, or excuse me, front facing to the canal. A lot of the businesses in the past have been built so they kind of rear facing and they're not really taking advantage of the canal front, but we're seeing a change in that with Craft 120 having their deck to the canal, Pontillo's having a side patio, and Main Street Restaurant is in process of putting a deck on the back of their property. So we're seeing a change of going back to the canal. We really want to enhance that. In addition, we would like to put LED lighting on all of our bridges, but especially this East Ave Bridge, like Fairport and some others have done. And I can change colors on my phone and just fun, things like that at Christmas time and make it kind of an interesting aspect to the project. So as I said, not everything needs to happen at once, but we've really tried to think long-term vision of what could happen over time. And, certainly parts of the promenade and the stage are important, and the amenities on the south side of the bank and the canal port. So for that, are there any questions I can answer?
5 questions. Financing and bonding.
Yeah.
And some other financing projects. Experience with other projects, obviously, that's a lot of other projects. Obstacles to preventing from starting the spring of 2023.
The only obstacles would probably be the decision on whether to bury the power lines and transmission lines would be the main obstacle, I think, right now. What to do about that.
You've already talked to
And-
details about it too, right? So-
Yeah, and actually what's great, I have a great relationship with Brian Stratton, the canal director. He comes down to Newark at least 3 times a year, and we walk around and look at the different projects we've been proposing. This is before DRI and during DRI. He was just here 2 weeks ago. And it's great to have them on board. So that's certainly an opportunity for us to expand our opportunities to get some of these projects accomplished going down the road.
2 minutes left for this. See for questions.
So if you didn't get funding from this, there are other sources of funding?
Yeah, we would certainly look for other sources. I think it's obviously a project on the smaller side, but it's pretty significant to the village. If you go out there on a Friday night, you see that, this parking lot's full. There's people lined up in their chairs here. The park's usually full. It's great scene. It's great for the village of Newark, and it's really it is the center of our community. So it'd be great to have this project as part of the DRI. I think it really goes along with the hotel and conference center, health and wellness center, and everything else that we're trying to develop down there. So
The other round of funding were for the facade improvements and stuff that comes after, would any of that be able to be used for this?
I don't think facade money. I think it would have to be more like CDBG maybe, or the LWRP that I spoke about earlier.
Right.
And that would be the vision. Sorry, we didn't say something.
No, reimagine.
Yeah, reimagine the canals too. And that would be part of the vision, not only for here, but on the other end of Van Buren Street in front of the Health and Wellness Center and Hotel, is to eventually have that part of our plan for local waterfront revitalization. And this whole area along Van Buren would be redeveloped. Van Buren Street would be closed for those properties, so we could have the canal properties right up to the hotel and conference center, everything else right up to the canal, and really take advantage of that canal frontage and redevelop that. That's not included in the DRI, the redevelopment of that bank, but that's something we had in our DRI's proposal for future funding, and really would continue to enhance the canals.
Could we foresee any problems with parking with all this added in?
Parking is right now, actually yesterday when Mark and I met with ARC, the one comment they had is they do not need all the parking that's here. They actually have a lot of parking behind here for the business. So that actually will open up the remaining parking for anything that's happening here. And certainly we want to make New York a more walkable community, and that's been one of our main goals all along. And with the projects over here in the IEC parking lot, there'll be a lot of parking there. And actually part of the discussions that we're having with Don is about whether it's municipal owned parking or whether it's privately owned parking. There will be a lot of advantages for the village to have it be municipal parking. from the aspect of maintenance, cost of the health and wellness center for the village, and obviously accessible to everything else here. So that's something that we're considering it, to make sure there's enough parking, so.
You know, so. Okay, and then the.
Sorry, I'm not.
The next one is repurpose the canal bridge. The last project.
So now repurpose the canal bridge, and I'll let Derek talk about kind of some of the design aspects. But this is really one of those projects that comes into kind of a long-term vision. Bob Hudeman, before he worked for the village of Newark, he had actually already done a plan on his own of a walking path around the village of Newark, and he shared that with me probably 5 or 6 years ago. So with that in mind, we started to think about how do we make a walking path happen around Newark, and there's a pretty good opportunity to make that happen. But one of the pieces to that was if we could add this bridge as a pedestrian cross at the canal. Because the idea would be that the canal path would be the beginning and end of that path. It would start on the west end, go across Edge Street, up behind Wegmans, where our Allerton Reservoir is right now, and then down to the school, over to Silver Hill and back that way. And this would be on the east end of that canal trail. So that's again, I've always said, I believe in under promise, over deliver, but everything we talk about in the DRI is kind of over promise and hope you deliver. So I try to make it clear that a lot of the stuff we're talking about, there's a long-term big vision for what could happen, and it has to happen in pieces. We can't do it all at once. The canal trail upgrade was the first step in making this happen. Along the canal trail, for instance, we put in conduit when we put that trail in, so we could eventually pull wires, put lights up and cameras if needed, to create a pocket community along the canal and just for the use of the canal and the walkability. So there's a lot of long-term things that we've been trying to put in place. This would be the next step to that piece of it. So we looked at that as a potential place to have a crossing. Again, it'd be great to have the lighting. And I guess I'll turn it over to Derek. You can talk about kind of some of the design aspects of this and what we'd be looking at.
Sure. So just to emphasize that this is a key north-south connection across the canal on this portion of the village. And as you're all probably familiar with the bridge, as you can see up here, on the one side of the canal, there's a large incline. Generally, we would have to have an incline increase in elevation about 20 feet to get on the deck of the structure. So it'd be reuse of the structure itself. That would include stripping out the current paint and repainting so it's safe, structurally supporting steel, new wood decking, railings. And then we're going through the renders right now. But on both sides of the canal, you would need to have a trail that's a switchback. So this is kind of an example of that. So every certain number of feet, you would have to have a landing, so it's ADA compliant. So you would need that on both sides, but obviously on the one side with Van Buren, much more higher elevation to deal with. Because of that, the cost to build a bridge would be so economically unfeasible that we're looking at just using dirt and asphalt to go up, but that would require a retention wall. So all the engineering is going on right now. As the mayor pointed out, another option would be lighting. This is, we've gone through this with several other projects. It actually is a very cost-effective way of enhancing the bridge. But the key right now is making the bridge safe to support the pedestrian and bicycle traffic across it. So yeah, it's a key point to be close to many of the other projects talked about in the DRI, the health and wellness, municipal center, the hotel, so forth. So this would really play off of that and tap into not only that loop trail that the mayor was talking about, but also the statewide trail, the Canalway Trail, the Empire Trail.
And so this is one of the projects that, the question is, could you do the project with less money? And kind of anticipation of the possibility that this is a project that may not get funded through the DRI. There are some really good projects that I'd like to see funded myself, and I think we would as a committee and a community. So maybe this doesn't rise to the highest priority for the use of the DRI funds. But with that in mind, this year, Bob put in 6 tip applications for the Village of Newark Transportation Infrastructure and Planning Programs. Excuse me, Bob, give me the right acronym.
Program.
Yes, all right, so I was on the right track, but, so at any rate, so we have 6 of those in. One is to completely reconstruct North Main Street. The other one is to reconstruct East Ave. And then this is one of the 6 projects that we put in. Van Buren Street repaving was another one because it ties into the DRI. We don't expect, we'll be very happy if we get 1 or 2 projects, but the idea is we have it and we put it out there, it's in the plan, so hopefully in the future it could be funded. So I could see this project being financed down the road through another source of funding, like the TIP application, if we're able to be successful with that. The other projects are higher precedent right now for the village, but again, long-term vision, what we see for the village, and certainly with the other projects, this crossing from Union Street over to Murray Street with all the project development on the north side of Canal will be a good project and kind of an essential addition to everything else we're trying to do. So
Mostly because it dumps out right at Dunkin' Donuts.
yeah, well, I mean, your kids, when your kids playing through basketball games, you gotta go across the canal to get coffee or down to your shore landing or something. So,
Who actually owns the bridge right now?
so that is, Bob has been researching that quite a bit. So I'll turn-
Best of my knowledge, that the county took the property, the right of way years ago, but they didn't take this bridge. The canal doesn't own it, and CSX, they think CSX still owns it.
It can, I'll get very change it quickly.
So I'm sure CSX would get that up.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to retain ownership of the bridge, so I think we'll be in good shape to obtain the bridge when the time is right for that, so.
You done?
Uh,
We got 3.5 minutes left.
All right.
Questions from the LPC? Sure, ask. So, anyone else have questions? All right, thanks again. So we did have Calasino come. So are there some questions that the LPC has? Maybe we can spend that 10 minutes. Any of the applicants that didn't have enough time to ask questions?
I do have questions of the 2 projects that are looking to do something with the historic registry. Does that limit what you can do with the building once you're actually part of that?
It doesn't change, you can still change the use. Well, you could always change the use of the project, so it could, 10 years down the road, you could convert the first floor from residential to an office. As long as you don't disturb the historic components. So I can't cut holes in the wall or window or exterior building to create sliding glass. And in some instances, but generally it doesn't limit.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's directed to more than one project, but what is the current demand for apartments in Newark?
So the county did a whole study on that, and I don't, Mark, do you remember the call numbers? There was, county did a study and showed there's a significant deficit countywide.
Of all the uses that we studied, that's the one that had by far the highest use, just within the DRI boundary itself. So even outside the boundary, it's going to be much larger. So there's lots of demand for housing.
So the one
We found
thing.
that in other DRIs.
Yeah. And the one thing I would add, the common theme over the years in our discussions on DRI in general, housing comes up time and time again. Young professionals, those who are unable to age in place, and market rate, higher end, all across the board, there's a need in Newark. We hear from the hospital, we hear from the school, we hear from the businesses in the community. We have doctors that are coming out here and setting up practices. They're looking for a different type of housing. We have the young professionals, and what quite often happens, and the former superintendent used to say this all the time. He would steal teachers from east of Newark. They would come work here for a year or 2, and then Monroe County would take them. And it's everything from the quality of life that's offered here compared to Monroe County and the housing as well. So this, we're hoping in this DRI that we're addressing all those housing needs, and the same with seniors. My kindergarten teacher now lives in Canandaigua, and as soon as she saw the DRI and talk about housing, she said, please tell me you're building something I can come live in back in Newark, because I don't really want to be out of Newark. So we hear that time and time again. So it's not only the study the county did, but the anecdotal stuff that we hear constantly about housing. So we believe, and everyone knows what the housing market is doing. We have less than 5 houses on the market at any given time in the village of Newark. And that's been going on for the last 3 years. We are seeing the same thing that they're seeing in Monroe County. Houses with multiple offers, less than 72 hours, 40, 50,000 over the asking price. And you and CJ can both, sure can talk about what's happening. So, it's definitely a need here. And I think all the housing projects would immediately absorb that demand, and there would still be more demand behind it. So I think it'll be a long time before we're out of housing. We're seeing all the new houses going up on Pearson, and there's proposals for other development in the village, which is exciting, what's coming behind the DRI. So there's a lot for us to look forward to. So.
Okay, thank you.
You asked a question, right?
Yeah.
The Health and Wellness Center. You guys talking about the parking, you want to put the parking out in the back way down Norton Street?
No, would potentially be used for court space, pickleball, basketball. It could be used for access for deliveries at the service entrance, but that's the north end, correct? All the way to the back?
Yes.
Yeah, no, probably not.
Not just about what would be useful, what access to the, well, not access, but what would the residents on that North Street, how would they be impacted by the change of the traffic flow and everything that's coming down North? But North, you go to a dead end.
So the bulk of the traffic today is trucks and deliveries. We probably wouldn't see any of those. We would potentially see a smaller delivery truck if with the concession area or services, janitorial supplies or medical supplies for the tenants. But the bulk of the parking would be in the front of it or the lot between the canal and Seager Street. Get them mixed up all the time, but this south side of IDC's current entrance.
It's 10 minutes left. If you want to ask any more questions. Jessica.
I don't think the Coventry Commons answered all the questions. Did they answer whether or not the project could proceed without the DRI?
Can you answer that?
So if we were awarded less, we would try to see what other funding sources might be available through RDC or ways to work with the village on some grant opportunities that we're up that maybe they could apply for. We could. There are some opportunities, but we thought maybe ask it around 10% of the total.
And do you, I don't even know if this question is appropriate, but do you have site control? Have you talked to the current owner? Is there potential?
Oh, we've been talking to him. We did sign a purchase contract with him.
Yeah.
It took a while, but we're under.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, I think we're all set. Before we go into public comments, so just next steps, we have a meeting on Tuesday. Compared to our other DRIs, you can see we have very experienced developers. So some of the stuff you may hear again, we'll try to add value to what they provided tonight. We'll make sure that all of the consultants provide the equal amount of information for all of the projects together. So we'll probably spend less time on the presentations, but we'll have more time for questions. We surely have more questions that will be developed between now and that meeting. So hopefully that will be another productive meeting, and that's in the bigger room up there. So because it is the DRI, we do have time for public comments, and we'd really, if you could leave it to public comments, I don't know if the developers have time for additional questions. So does anybody here have public comments?
So the next meeting, there'll be time for public comments.
Yes.
I think it's crucial that the public has unlimited kind of time, not unlimited, but, speaking under a stopwatch is hard. I'm suggesting that if we have a good turnout, I don't know what your turnouts have been, that we allow the public, excluding the upfront here after they're done, to have some opportunity for input, as this will affect our community for years to come. What is the agenda for that meeting different than tonight's meeting?
Well, it's going to be mostly the consultants making their presentations. There's probably maybe some things that were missed during this presentation. We're going to have fuller profiles in terms of what the information that is provided. Next, we'll have more floor layouts. We might have some renderings for some of the projects. We might have different cost estimates. We're going to talk to all of the applicants about that. We're going to look more into some more due diligence on any kind of things that would hinder these projects from being developed. We may add some additional information based on what's already provided.
And then some of these details that were shared would be on the DRI Newark.
We're recording this tonight, so this will be on the DRI website, yes.
So some of the items that they handed out would be available, and I link into the, I don't want to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, if it's okay with the applicants, we can put that on there as well.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments?
Just for the committee's information, the transportation improvement program that we applied for federal funds. The draft list of what projects will be selected for funding should be out by the end of June. So that may help you. I think the bill we can input in Van Buren Street as a grant application, pedestrian bridge, and also I think the staff has some rehab on that bridge as well. If that helps with your decision making process going forward. So once I find out, I'll pass that on to Jonathan. So.
Yeah, and we're also going to provide information on other funding sources at that meeting for, not particularly for a project, but just generally speaking, what if there's funding for canal projects, funding for building projects, we're going to provide that information to the committee. So, Mike, did you have something?
We do have a public comment on the online chat.
Okay.
It's a bit of a question, but we'll read it out. So I thought this, I'm quoting here, I thought the GRI couldn't be used for projects currently under construction. It sounds like the brewery will also be underway before the money is allocated.
No, they are correct. You can't start the project until the money has been, or the agreements have been signed with the state for the project. So that is correct.
But it's not the construction, the
grant
DRI
isn't for
ask
the
isn't for anything that's under construction now.
Correct.
Right.
It's two different projects.
That's the only question that is online. Anyone listening online would like to put in a public comment, please enter that in the chat.
Anyone in person have any other comments? I won't time you. All right. And Derek just corrected me, the next meeting is actually at the school. So, sorry. The high school.
High school and the LGI.
It's gonna be a little bit tighter.
Is there any effort to publicize that a little harder than some of these others?
Well, we publicized all.
I know.
We've got them on social media, we put them on the New York website, we sent out press releases. So we've done a good amount of public.
I was just wondering if there was any other outside box items that somebody could drive around with a microphone. I'll get some. Stool do it.
Yeah, you don't know about the DRI yet in Newark. You're not reading the paper, you're not looking for it. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So. Anything else?
What time?
6. All right, we get done by 8. So good job, everyone. We'll see you Tuesday. Yeah.